Revealed. How he chose the hidden sister no cowboy desired. An incredible, touching journey of love. Jake Turner's hands were rough, calloused from years of labor under the relentless Texas sun. Yet today they trembled as he held a weathered envelope in the scattered sunlight of the barn. A vivid blue sky loomed outside, mocking the storm inside him. The faint scent of hay and leather filled the air, yet it offered no comfort. It only intensified his sense of loss. The letter, penned by his father years before his untimely passing, bore secrets that bound like chains around his heart. Emily. Just the name sent a wave of guilt crashing down. She was more than just a forgotten sister. She was a ghost that haunted each sunrise, a reminder of the choices that had splintered their family. Old emotions flickered to life within him, a blend of anger, loyalty, and regret. He knew their father wouldn't condone the path she had taken, opting to paint, to express joy through color and canvas rather than through the grit of ranch life that defined him. A part of Jake had admired her courage, yet he also carried the burden of time and responsibility toward his younger siblings, a duty that felt unyielding. As he rifled through the past, he wondered, was it a betrayal to consider reaching out? What kind of ranch hand would abandon the traditions that ran deep in his blood? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With his mind still reeling from the revelation, Jake forced himself to focus on the present. Trouble lurked closer to home. A rival rancher, known for feuds as old as the land itself, had begun encroaching on their territory. The tick-tock of mounting debts echoed loudly in his thoughts. The stakes of losing the land they'd called home gnawed at him, demanding every ounce of resolve. They were on the brink of losing everything: his family, their livelihood. He hesitated, his heart racing as the torn pieces of his past clashed with the emerging urgency of the present. Should he reach out to Emily, or should he play the role of protector for the family who never stood by her? And wasn't it his beauty to carry on their father's legacy? The image of their sprawling ranch gripped him tightly. But a voice inside questioned that loyalty, asking if it was worth holding on to ideals that stifled love and acceptance. As though in response to his inner turmoil, a plume of smoke rose in the distance, suffocating the horizon. A thick chill darted down his spine as Jake realized fire threatened their haven. What had started as a chase for a resolution had turned into a race against time. His decision loomed over him like dark clouds ready to burst. Torn between loyalty to a land that defined him and the sister they cast away, he knew the clock was ticking. Could an embrace of the past lead them into a new future? Jake gripped the steering wheel harder, knuckles white. The flames of uncertainty hovered closer, demanding action now. Even as he felt the weight of duty anchor him, the whisper of hope nudged him toward the road ahead. But would he choose a familiar path of tradition, or dare to venture toward the possibility of forgiveness and unity? The struggle brewed violently in his veins. This was only the beginning of the reckoning that awaited him. Jake pressed the gas pedal down, his old truck lunging forward through the dusty trails of the ranch. Each jerk of the vehicle mirrored the tumult within him, uncertainty blended with determination propelling him onward. The acrid smell of smoke grew stronger as he approached the source, the once peaceful landscape now marred by danger. He fought the instinct to turn around, to retreat into the familiar comfort of duty and tradition. But therein lay the fight. The old ways seemed more constricting with every passing moment, the choked air signaling it was time for change. He arrived at the edge of the fields, watching the flames churn like angry spirits, licking up the dry stalks of grass and threatening to consume the land that had nurtured generations. The fire reflected his internal conflict, its wild dance embodying the chaos of loyalties tangled within him. Jake's heart raced as he got out of the truck, sweat forming on his brow, a mix of fear and anger coursing through him. It was a deeply personal battle. The land that defined his family was on the brink of destruction, just as the bonds that held them together were fraying. Rushing toward the blaze, his mind turned painfully toward Emily. A pang of guilt struck him harder than any flame could. Damning those whispers that told him loyalty was a prison, he knew he couldn't confront the fire consuming the ranch until he faced the fire within himself. Would he cling to a legacy built on exclusion, or would he take a step into the unknown to embrace the sister he'd abandoned? Jake grabbed a nearby bucket and joined his father's old hand, Tom, who was already battling the flames. The seasoned rancher looked up, his brow knit with resolve, and nodded in silent understanding. They were comrades in arms against nature's fury, but Jake's thoughts were scattered, drawn back to the letter and the fork in his road. Did communal effort equate to familial rejection? Was sheltering his siblings from embarrassment worth the firestorm of his own regret? "Jake," Tom shouted, breaking through his thoughts, "we need to create a perimeter. If we can contain it here, we stand a chance." The urgency of the moment propelled Jake into action, but every swing of the bucket also sent shockwaves through his conscience. What if he could bring Emily back? What if she possessed the very spark needed to change their lives, to heal their family? Jake shook the thoughts away. Now was not the time for distraction. As sweat dripped down his face, Jake's frustration boiled. Each swoop of water felt futile against the raging flames, an external manifestation of his feelings of inadequacy. He questioned his purpose, the path he had chosen, and the weight of the decisions before him. Slowly, clarity started to break through the turmoil. This fire could both destroy and illuminate. Perhaps it was the very force pushing him to embrace a new future. Breath heavy, he glanced over at Tom, who was lost in his own thoughts, the fire capturing everyone's attention. Jake's mind raced with the sudden awareness that maybe, just maybe, it was time to face the truths he had buried. The flames curling higher were a call to action, not just for the land, but for his soul. All the fear and doubt bubbled to the surface, demanding recognition. The decision loomed like the billowing smoke over their heads, now or never. He could no longer pretend his past didn't exist. The embers of regret would either consume him or ignite a new path to healing. But as the fire raged, would he be brave enough to face the truth of Emily's absence? Sweat-soaked and resolute, Jake straightened his back, a sense of purpose beginning to kindle. Just as he prepared to share his thoughts with Tom, a chilling howl of wind swept through the field, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. Change was imminent, but at what cost? Jake opened his mouth to speak when a distant shout echoed over the crackle of the flames. Someone was approaching. Who would come to their aid, and would Jake's decision still matter when help arrived? The moment of truth approached, the weight of the past pressing down even heavier. The sound of heavy footsteps on the ground pulled Jake from his tumultuous thoughts, making him glance back toward the line of trees bordering the fields. Through the haze of heat and smoke, he saw a figure rushing toward them, an unfamiliar silhouette shaped by purpose. As the person drew closer, Jake's heart rate quickened, concern mixing with hope. He needed all the help he could get. "Jake!" the voice cut through the crackling fire. It was Sarah, a childhood friend, now a firefighter. Her face glistened with sweat and determination, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. "I heard the reports. Get everyone you can to create a line." The urgency in her eyes pushed Jake to snap out of his internal spiral. With a nod, he turned back to Tom, his voice steadying. "We've got more help. Let's double our efforts." The weight of the impending danger sharpened his focus, igniting something in him. He couldn't control the flames threatening to devour the land, but he could control his response. As they moved together, Jake, Tom, and now Sarah, their teamwork became instinctual. Water flew from buckets, hearts synchronized in one brave purpose. With each movement, Jake felt a piece of him resetting. The fire became more than just a threat. It was a crucible burning away his doubts, forcing him to confront what truly mattered. "Jake, what's going on?" Sarah shouted, her voice cutting into his thoughts. "You look like you're fighting more than just the flames." Wasn't that the truth? Clenching the bucket harder, he felt the splintering resolve within him. "I've lost my way," he admitted, though the words felt heavy on his tongue, as if they were the very confession he'd avoided for too long. "Then find it," she urged, her eyes fierce. "You've got a chance right now to decide. Who do you want to be? For your family? For Emily?" Her words struck him deep. All this time, he had zeroed in on the flames, yet the true fire had been silently spreading within him, threatening to consume everything he held dear. Maybe facing his sister was not the end of everything, but the beginning of something new. The trio worked tirelessly, their bodies dancing between bursts of flames and suffocating heat. Sarah's presence anchored him, reminding him of resilience born from community, connection, and courage. Relief surged through him as they finally managed to create a perimeter. The inferno still roared ferociously, yet it seemed, momentarily, less menacing. As the flames encroached upon the edge of the newly formed line, Jake turned to Tom and Sarah. "What if we use the water from the nearby trench? We can create a barrier." He could almost hear the sound of ideas budding in his mind, creativity ignited by crisis. "Good thinking." Tom swallowed heavily, a grin breaking through his fatigue. "Let's move." Rushing toward the trench, adrenaline coursed through Jake's veins. Every step forward was a mental leap into the unknown, a marked departure from his past self. Each decision arrayed before him, to act from a place of fear or to lean into the potential healing that lay ahead. The flames teased at his resolve, yet Jake felt something shifting within. As they reached the water source, he caught a glimpse of the ranch in the distance, flames snaking through the fields like bitter memories. A potential loss loomed, but with it came a chance to transform grief into resolve. For Emily, he could no longer stand on the sidelines. Filling the buckets with urgency, he raised his voice. "It's now or never. Let's change the course of this fire and of our lives." With renewed purpose, they darted back as smoke billowed around them, their efforts synchronizing beautifully. Still, in the back of his mind, the truth about Emily continued to beckon. He could feel the weight reverberating beneath his skin, a reminder that the fire outside was mere reflection of the internal blaze he had yet to address. Just as they formed their line again, the air shifted and the flames flickered ominously. Would his newfound courage be enough to confront soon the real fire that had kept him from his sister? Jake's resolve tightened. He needed to find the words he had stifled for too long, to illuminate the shadows of uncertainty. Suddenly, a piercing cry broke through the smoke, momentarily freezing him in place. It wasn't the fire calling now. It was someone he had feared all along. Would confronting this voice push him back into a past he wanted to escape, or would it finally set him free? The piercing cry rang in Jake's ears, cutting through the cacophony of fire and chaos. It was Emily's voice, raw and unyielding. The sound was a knife slicing through his resolve, unleashing a torrent of emotions he thought he had buried. Panic surged. Her safety became immediately paramount. He had barely grasped the reins of his newfound courage, and now he felt it slipping, consumed by a sense of impending doom. "Jake, help!"
The desperation in her voice stirred something deeper within him, a twisted ball of regret coiling tighter around his heart. He had spent so many years evading family ties that now, with the stakes so high, what did he have to show for it? He turned, scanning the smoky horizon, trying to locate her, willing the flames and darkness to reveal her presence. "Stay focused," Tom shouted, his face a mask of determination, struggling against his own fear. But how could Jake focus, knowing that Emily could be in danger? The flames raged like wild animals, but they were no match for the firestorm within him. His mind flickered between the immediate needs of the situation and the haunting memories of their estrangement, the years spent apart that loomed like shadows in the flickering light. All this teamwork, all this effort, it suddenly seemed meaningless if he didn't confront her. It was time to break free of the emotional shackles that had held him captive for so long. "Sarah," he called, urgency thick in his voice, "I need to find Emily. Can you and Tom hold the line here?" She hesitated, clearly reading the turmoil etched across his face. "Jake, you can't leave us now. We need everyone here." Her voice trembled slightly, fear lacing her words. He could see the concern in her eyes, and he understood it intimately. The fear of acting out of impulse, the risk of losing everything. But this was different. He wasn't just acting out of emotion. He was preparing to dismantle the walls he had constructed for years, to address the burning questions that had tormented him. "I have to do this," he insisted, breathing heavily. "Every moment holds a chance, Sarah. I must confront what's been consuming me. Please." After a moment that felt suspended in time, she finally nodded.
"Be careful. Don't forget what's at stake." Jake didn't respond. He took off toward the direction of the scream. But with every determined step, doubt crept in. What if she had moved on? What if she would rather face the flames alone than see her brother? Memories of childhood laughter faded into shadows, and the prospects of reconciliation turned black under the threat of the fire. As he navigated the treacherous terrain, the air thick with smoke and heat, he began to reflect on all their shared dreams, the bond they once had. Could he reignite that connection, or was the distance between them too vast to bridge? Each stride teased his mind with flashes of a reunion that could slip through his fingers like ash, pieces of hope gathering with the embers. Suddenly, another cry echoed, this time closer. "Jake!" The familiar sound pulled him forward like a compass. He wasn't just running toward a distant voice. He was sprinting toward a chance at resolution. Just as he reached a clearing, he stumbled onto a small group of trapped horses, wildly moving, their confusion adding to the chaos. And there, in amidst the turmoil, was Emily, her form silhouetted against the flames. She was trying to calm the panicking animals, her face stark with fear and determination. Jake's heart raced as he approached, fighting the rush of tenderness and apprehension. They were standing on the brink of an inferno, and yet it was her gaze that ignited the fire of his vulnerability. It was now or never, not just the fight against the flames, but a confrontation with the deepest parts of himself. "Emily!" he shouted, his voice breaking the distance as smoke swirled around them. She turned, eyes widening at the sight of him, a blend of surprise and anger washing over her. "What are you doing here, Jake? You shouldn't be." "I had to find you," he interrupted, stepping closer, the heat of the scene amplifying the intensity of the moment. "I can't let the flames take you from me, not again." The realization flooded him. This was the confrontation he had long resisted. The fiery chaos outside was calling him to face the internal blaze he had avoided. What came next would test his resolve beyond the physical fire before them. Would he summon the courage to reconcile the past, or would he let it consume him whole? Emily's expression softened, and for a moment the fire dimmed into the background of their shared history. Now they were simply two siblings confronted by everything that lay between them, and everything they might still reclaim. Jake inhaled deeply. "I'm here for the both of us. Let's get through this together." But as they turned toward the horses, ready to guide the frantic creatures to safety, the ground shook beneath them, an ominous rumble of something big, something that felt entirely out of his control. Would their choices lead them back into the fire, or would they finally step into the light?
The earth trembled beneath their feet, an unsettling reminder that their precarious situation was about to escalate. Jake instinctively grasped Emily's arm, pulling her closer as they steadied themselves against the rumbling ground. Fear and urgency whirled like the smoke that surrounded them, but now was not the time to falter. They had a task at hand, a shared mission that transcended the personal gap that had formed between them over the years. "Just hold on to the horses," Jake called out, his voice steady despite the roiling chaos. "If we can guide them away from the flames, we can keep them safe." As he spoke, he stepped forward, taking a position between Emily and the raucous animals, embodying a protector's instinct buried deep within him. Emily mirrored his resolve, moving deftly to soothe the frightened horses. She reached out, her hands steady with purpose amidst the tremors of panic. Watching her in action stirred a rush of admiration in Jake. He hadn't realized how much he had missed her strength, her conviction to fight through adversity. For so long, he had disconnected from their bond, but now, with every passing moment, that connection felt like threads weaving them back together. "Jake, we only have a few minutes," she urged, her brow furrowed with concentration. "Once the flames spread here, it'll be too late. If we can't keep them calm, they'll scatter. We both know what chaos looks like." She glanced into his eyes, and he could see a marked change, a flicker of understanding, and perhaps even forgiveness starting to emerge between them. "I understand," he replied, determination lacing his words. "But before we move, let's talk." The words hung between them, a powerful weight amidst the air thick with smoke. The horses whinnied and stomped around them, yet Jake felt a strange tranquility settle over him. This wasn't merely about surviving the disaster raging around them. It was about confronting the wreckage of their relationship, now. "Talk here?" Her frustration flared again, cutting through his newfound calm. "Jake, we don't have time for that." "I know we're in danger, Em, but if we get out of here, we can't carry the weight of our past into the future. I need to hear your side. I want to understand what happened between us." He knew he was risking everything, her safety, the moment, but the urgency of their connection loomed larger than the danger. Her eyes sparked with disbelief and fleeting hurt. "Is this really the time for a family therapy session? We need to save ourselves." "Maybe saving ourselves starts with acknowledging what we lost," he countered softly, hoping to touch the memories that lay between them. "We can't turn our backs on the past anymore. If you're willing, I want to be there for you, not just now, but moving forward." For a heartbeat, the world around them faded into the background. The chaos became a muted echo. Could he really do this? Could he unlock the pain and anger that had defined their relationship for so long? This was more than just a physical battle now. It transformed into a pivotal confrontation, one that could either mend the frayed ties of family or further extend the rift. A flicker of something vulnerable crossed Emily's face before she focused back on the horses. "We'll talk later, okay? Let's not waste time." As if sensing the urgency, she took a breath and began commanding the horses again. Jake watched her with a mixture of admiration and frustration, wishing for the bridge that could unlock the emotional turmoil filed away in each of their hearts. The rumbling intensified beneath them, creating jolts of panic amongst the horses. They needed to act now or risk everything they'd worked for. They coordinated, guiding the horses toward a path that led away from the roaring flames, a small pocket of relative safety. Yet, deep inside, Jake felt a simmering dread, Would they ever truly address what lay between them, or was it destined to remain unspoken? As they moved closer to safety, a tremor struck with a ferocity that sent embers bursting from a nearby flame. Jake instinctively shielded Emily, instinct screaming at him to protect. The fire blazed hotter. Was it too late to salvage their connection amidst these cataclysmic events? He steadied her again, this time locking eyes with her. "We're going to make it through this, but if we do, we have to face what's next. I want to know everything." The intensity of their gaze held a promise, but before she could respond, a deafening roar erupted from the flames. A wall of fire surged forward, blocking their escape, sealing their fate in a chaotic vortex. Jake's heart raced. Crisis or clarity? They were about to confront everything. Would they rise from the ashes together or lose each other to the inferno? Timing was everything, and at that moment, survival wasn't their only battle. But Jake realized they were far from alone, and the real challenge was just beginning. Jake felt the heat intensify as the flames surged closer, licking at the ground with voracious hunger. Panic threatened to engulf him, yet amid the chaos, he felt a strange clarity. He had allowed countless moments of silence to define his relationship with Emily. Now, with everything on the line, he could see that their survival hinged not only on escaping the fire, but also on confronting the shadows of their past. "Emily," he shouted over the roar of the fire, forcing his voice to remain calm. "We can't let them scatter. Focus on guiding them." She nodded, a mix of fear and resolve etched on her face. The urgency of the situation had brought an unexpected focus. Both of them were breathing hard, but neither was willing to falter. They had one rescuer's instinct fused in desperation. As they navigated the panicked horses, Jake could feel the tension simmering. Each animal represented a fragment of their own turmoil. Would they flee into the fire, driven by fear, or unite under pressure and find safety together? The analogy was rapidly becoming clear. The flames signified the unresolved issues between them. "Stick to the left," Emily shouted, redirecting a pair of horses that threatened to bolt in response to the billowing smoke. Jake moved in concert with her, realizing that years of disconnect were evaporating like the smoke around them. They were still hurt, still distant, but duty bound them like a lifeline. His gaze sliced through the flames, noticing the path ahead, the line of safety they desperately needed to reach. Using her bond with the horses, Emily coaxed them toward a small break in the fire's hold. Despite the fear gnawing at his gut, he couldn't help but admire how she managed to maintain her poise. "Think back to that time in the spring when we broke away," Emily called out, attempting to blend memories into their immediate task. "Remember how you navigated Brutus around the fallen trees? A few scratches and a bruised ego later, we—" "Exactly, just like that. You're not just a rider, Jake, you're a leader." Her voice trembled, but there was fierce conviction behind it. He marveled at her words. Did she truly see him this way? The past had convinced him of his failures, but in that moment of shared endeavor, her words ignited a flicker of reclaimed self-worth within him. "Let's not forget, you were the one who stood firm back then," he shot back, hoping to ease her tension while recognizing her strength. "Your conviction calmed that whole herd." "There's no herd left now, Jake," she replied sharply, panic edging into her voice as a horse bucked nervously. "Just this fire and us." "Then let's use that conviction again," he urged. "Let's make it out together. We have to feel our way around this fire. We cannot afford to lose that trust, however fractured it is." As they resumed directing the horses, Jake felt a transformation within themselves. Each step became not just a rescue mission, but an assertion of growth, awareness, and reconciliation. He had been hiding behind his failures for too long, but now he realized he had the power to evoke change, to rise above the destructive weight of their shared past. Suddenly, the ground shook violently again, sending another surge of dread through him as the flames whipped higher. He grimaced, peering through the chaos to assess their surroundings. "Keep going, Emily, almost there," he called, as he felt adrenaline surge through him. The last few horses needed to be reassured and guided home. But just as victory loomed ahead, a spire of flame erupted in their path, the ground beneath them trembling with a violent ferocity. For a fleeting moment, it felt like everything around him froze. Time halted, and all he could see was fire. Jake's heart raced, a battle waged in his chest as he caught sight of the danger. "Emily, we have to!" Without warning, an ember spiraled above, igniting a fierce urgency. "There's no single path now," she yelled, genuine fear flashing across her face. Yet behind that fear, he saw a spark of determination. They could forge a new path. His mind swirled as he contemplated their next move. Would it be survival at the expense of their unresolved issues, or could they fight together, addressing the flames of their past? In that moment, Jake understood. They stood on the brink of confronting everything that had haunted them. With Emily by his side, he could either embrace the flames or let them consume them whole. "Emily, we're going to walk through together," he shouted, an awakening electrifying his spirit. Could facing the raging fire usher in clarity instead of despair? Or was stepping into the unknown about to call their relationship toward an irrevocable reckoning? As they took a deep breath and moved forward, Jake realized that love itself was about to be put to the ultimate test. Would they walk through the fire together, or would the flames rip them apart once and for all? With a surge of determination, Jake grasped Emily's hand tightly, their fingers interlocking amidst the encroaching chaos. They took a collective breath, ready to confront what lay before them. The flames roared like a chorus of destruction, but between those blaring sounds, Jake found focus in Emily's gaze. That fearless resolve sparked an ember of strength within him. "Together, Emily!" He had to believe those words were true. The piercing heat enveloped them as they edged closer to the void of flames. But he understood now that this fire represented more than just danger. It embodied their fractured relationship and the hard truths they had both avoided. As they plunged through a wall of heat, time seemed to slow. Jake felt every beat of his heart as they navigated through the chaos, arms raised to shield themselves from the blistering air. Shadows danced in front of him, flickering memories surfacing amidst the haze, a tapestry woven with regret, silence, and moments he wished to reclaim. The fire danced angrily, yet it illuminated truths he had buried deep. "Come on," Emily urged, pushing forward, already thinking of the next steps as she urged the horses behind them. Jake followed, feeling the weight of her faith, pulling him from the grip of despair. It was a stark reminder of the often uncertain balance between bravery and vulnerability. His mind raced with thoughts, asking questions he had long wilted under. Who was he without this burden of fear? What if he chose not to step back into that darkness? Could his past mistakes steer them to the brink of destruction? Or would acknowledging them grant them freedom? Tension welled in his chest as he fought against the temptation to falter. As they neared the edge of the inferno, a panic-stricken horse broke free, jerking towards the flames with a blaring whinny. Jake's instinct flared. He couldn't stand aside. Without hesitation, he dashed toward the animal, recalling the way Emily had expertly calmed the others. He reached for the fraying reins, tossing a glance back at her. "I've got this!" he yelled, his own confidence swelling as he felt Emily's gaze support him from behind, pushing him onwards. "Reel it in slow," Emily shouted as he steadied the frightened creature. He felt the tension in its muscles, the wild beating of its heart mirrored his own. Focusing on the bond he had formed with horses over the years, he steadied his breath, asserting more courage than he thought he had. With gentle movements, he cooed at the creature,
allowing the uncertainty of his past to slip away as he coaxed it back. That's it, easy. The horse's distress slowly abated under his gentle touch. The moment became a revelation. Jake was not the man shackled to failures, but a leader who could guide and protect. Reveling in his own sudden shift of confidence, he felt a renewed sense of purpose rise, an unshackling realization that flickered through him like the fire surrounding them. As he led the horse back, Emily watched with the slightest hint of awe. He could almost sense her reevaluation of him, a deeper understanding forming between them. With one glance at her, he summoned all his strength to speak. "We can mend this, Em. Like this horse, we too can be out of control at times, but that doesn't mean we can't find our way back." The distance between them tightened. They stood together, still encumbered by flames, yet more united by their unspoken words. The fire around them felt less like a consuming force and more of a backdrop for their hang-ups, a stage that invited transformation, vulnerability, and growth. Just as hope surged within him, a deafening crack echoed through the air like a bell tolling doom, igniting the ground beneath them. Jake and Emily stumbled as the flames roared higher, blocking their escape route in a burst of fiery debris. "Now what?" Emily shouted, dread slicing into her voice as reality closed in around them. Jake's heart thudded violently. They could potentially lose everything if he didn't act quickly. The path they had forged through the flames was suddenly gone, and fear wrapped around him like shackles attempting to pull him back into despair. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he narrowed his focus, feeling time compress as the moment demanded a choice. "We don't run from the fire, we face it, together." They had stepped through flames before, but this time it would require prioritizing their past and present, risking even more to ignite their future. As the blazing heat surged closer and ash began to rain down, Jake felt that this was more than a confrontation with flames. It was the moment the truth of their relationship could redefine them entirely. Would they fight to move forward and rebuild? Or would the flames pull them both back into the shadows? With the debris still falling, they were about to confront the most pivotal moment of their lives, the pain of their past or the potential for renewal. As they teetered on the precipice of decision, Jake understood that love's ultimate test was both the most terrifying and liberating experience he had yet to face. The fire crackled ominously as Jake grappled with the gravity of their situation. Whatever plan he had concocted moments earlier dissolved under the weight of fresh fear. The ground beneath them shook from the violent shifts of energy, the blaze now a ferocious adversary testing their resilience. Jake felt Emily's hand tighten around his, a silent pledge that they wouldn't falter, they wouldn't back down. "Look!" Emily shouted, pointing frantically to the left. A derelict barn loomed at the edge of the encampment, its wooden structure charred but still standing. "We can take shelter there until it passes." The barn represented a flicker of hope amidst the tumult. For the first time that day, Jake felt a spark of clarity. "All right, on my count." He turned to her, forcing down his trepidation to project confidence. 1, 2. As they dashed toward the barn, panic surged alongside them, urging them to make every stride count. Each step was amplified with doubt, his mind racing through what-ifs. What if they made it only to find a worse fate inside? What if the flames enveloped the structure before they could reach it? In that concoction of fear and adrenaline, Jake began to discover something new, an instinct to fight against the uncertainty, to lean into the truth of his choices. They burst through the barn doors. The air was stale, thick with memories of past labor. Sunlight filtered in through gaps in the wooden slats, illuminating dust particles that danced like fleeting hopes. Even amidst decay, it felt like a sanctuary, a temporary respite where he could catch his breath and confront the depth of his feelings. "We need to secure the doors,"
Emily informed, as she hurried to push a few old hay bales against the entrance. Her voice was steady, but Jake sensed tension in her posture. "I'll check the windows," Jake replied, instinctually gravitating toward familiar tasks. But as he moved through the barn's shadowy interior, he felt his heart pound not just from the fear of their imminent danger, but with a realization. This moment was an opportunity to reforge his identity. Glimmers of doubt inspired a dawning realization. Jake's past had followed him and become an anchor, dragging him down into a cycle of inadequacy. But now, standing amidst charred timber and fragile memories, he understood that strength didn't come from avoiding the fire. It emerged from confronting it. "Emily," he called over his shoulder, his voice strong and unwavering. "We've faced worse than this. Remember the storm last summer? We thought our whole ranch would wash away, but we stood together and rebuilt, didn't we?"
She turned with a glint of gratitude in her eyes. "You're right. We faced challenges before. It's how we came back stronger that matters." Her moment of vulnerability sparked a connection he hadn't expected. Jake felt emboldened. Every misstep, every regret had prepared him for this moment of redeeming grace. "The past can teach us," he said, moving closer to her, bolstered by each shared word. "But we have to accept it instead of letting it define us. Face it together like we have always done." He realized their relationship was like the barn, weathered but resilient. They could rebuild, but it meant allowing each other to see their imperfections and struggles, transforming the ashes of failure into a strong foundation for growth. Staring into Emily's eyes, he could see a determination mirrored back at him. A newfound conviction surged within Jake, a belief that love required facing the fire head-on. This was more than just survival. It was about partnership through adversity. As the flames raged outside, cracking and tearing at the world they knew, Jake felt the weight shift from despair to purpose. The structure around them was a canvas upon which they could craft a new narrative. They had a choice. But just as they began to plan their next move, another loud explosion echoed outside, louder than the last. The barn shuddered, sending clouds of dust swirling into the air. The threat was now more tangible than ever, and the time for action was now. Would they seize their moment to transform chaos into a stepping stone for something greater, or would the flames extinguish their chance for a future together? Jake's resolve solidified as he took Emily's hand once more. "We need to move." The heat intensified, and they knew this was the moment to either embrace their fears or get consumed by them. In the throes of chaos, Jake's heart raced, a primal urge for survival overtaking him as he and Emily stood shrouded in uncertainty. The barn trembled as if echoing their inner turmoil. Outside, the explosion had sent fiery spirits into the air, threatening to envelop their sanctuary. This was no mere physical engagement. It was a reckoning for Jake, an invitation to ignite his dormant potential. "Let's check the rear," he urged, instinct guiding his actions. Disregarding the residual fear, he moved toward an unseen exit, driving the urgency into his muscles. If they were to navigate the entangled web of flames and dread, they needed to remain proactive. Emily followed closely, her unwavering presence anchoring him amidst the storm. Peering through a narrow window, Jake scanned the landscape. Ground scoured by flames lay besieged by the tendrils of smoke. Yet the path leading away from the barn opened with curious clarity. He wasn't just watching the destruction unfold, he was actively assessing their options. A revelation washed over him. He had always assumed leadership was defined by grand gestures, but here, in obscured moments between panic and decision, he truly began to understand that guidance came from reacting to crises, recognizing opportunities in disaster. "Emily," he said, voice steadier now, "we can't stay here. The fire's spreading too close." Determination coiling in his chest, he turned to her, an electric connection forming as their eyes locked.
"I see a break in the trees about 50 yards out," he noted, transitioning from thought to action. "If we can reach that, we can regroup and figure out our next move." Her nod was resolute, but the lines of concern etched into her brow betrayed the stakes they faced. Jake felt her anxiety intertwining with his own, a tether that connected their fears, but also their resolve. "Here," Emily said, as she handed him a flashlight she'd found on a dusty shelf. "You lead. I trust you, Jake." The weight of her trust ignited something fierce within him. It was a thread of responsibility he hadn't fully embraced before, but now it felt essential. He wasn't just navigating his way through peril, he was carrying her faith as they ventured into the unknown. With the flashlight plunged into the darkness, illuminating a path into the smoky haze, Jake moved forward, every step a declaration of his determination to protect their shared future. Outside, the world was apocalyptic. Flames licked at the edges of the barn, crackling an ominous tune that resonated in the core of his being. He locked eyes with Emily, an unspoken agreement drifting between them. Their survival hinged on trust and action. They would have to face whatever awaited them in the outside world together, armed with newfound courage and an understanding of how vulnerability allowed growth. "Ready?" he asked, a challenge hidden within his tone. "As ever," she replied, her voice a beacon. Steeling himself, he pushed through the barn doors, inhaling deeply, the acrid scent of smoke igniting every survival instinct within. They dashed from the barn, the fire's roar competing with their heartbeats, and Jake felt a thrill. He was no longer a victim of circumstance, but a participant in his own narrative. The ground crackled beneath their feet as they sprinted toward the trees. Each stride became a testament to their personal evolutions. Doubts whispered at the edges of his mind, but he silenced them with the rhythm of his breath. They might be running from flames, but it felt equally like a race towards something grander, a reclaiming of their story. Suddenly, the ground shifted below him. Jake stumbled, caught off guard by the sharp rise of the earth, and looked back, earnest panic flickering in Emily's eyes. He reached out, instinctively pulling her to him, but in that frantic moment, his heart dropped. The realization washed over him like the stark brightness of the flames behind. They hadn't just run into danger. They had also unleashed something white-hot within themselves that couldn't be ignored. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the realization settle into his resolve. The fire didn't just threaten to consume them. It was forging a new version of himself, one that could confront anything life threw at him. As they reached the trees, the underbrush crackled ominously, warning them of unseen dangers lurking just beyond their sight. Trust would be their guiding star amidst uncertainty. But as they pressed on, a sudden noise caught his attention, a shout, far too close for comfort. What if they weren't the only survivors? What if danger lurked among the trees? Jake felt the tension wind tighter around his chest, and with every instinct honed in doubt, he steadied his breath and turned to Emily. "We need to move quickly," he instructed, sensing an impending confrontation. "We aren't alone." The newfound strength was palpable, but the stakes had escalated, thrusting their journey into uncharted territory. What awaited them ahead? The trees loomed tall, casting long shadows over the rocky path as Jake and Emily pushed deeper into the wilderness, the heat of the flames still stinging the air behind them. Every step through the underbrush felt surreal, as if they had crossed not just from the grip of danger, but also from a past that had held them both captive for too long. "Jake!" Emily's voice cut through the tension. She held up a hand, signaling for him to stop. "We can't just charge through the woods. We need a plan." The urgency in her voice mirrored an unspoken truth. They were in uncharted territory, both physically and emotionally. He nodded, heart racing as he assessed their surroundings. "Right, let's find shelter first, somewhere we can regroup, maybe get some water or clear our heads." It was a mundane plan in the face of chaos, yet it felt grounding. Together, they maneuvered around fallen branches and thick brush, the weight of silence landing heavy between them. With every step, Jake felt a shift within himself, a quiet confidence building that had been absent for years. He was no longer the boy who hid from his failures, but was transforming into the man who sought resolution, not just for the firestorm outside, but the one raging in his heart. As they wound deeper into the woods, Jake caught glimpses of Emily's determination. He saw it in the way her eyes flared with intensity, how her posture straightened with every decision they made. It ignited a flame of hope. She was fierce, resilient, and wholly alive in this moment. "Over there," Jake pointed toward an old hunting cabin nestled against a grove of trees.
It looked rustic, yet sturdy. Its presence was a promise of refuge and a stepping stone to the conversations they both desperately needed to have. With purpose, they approached the cabin, and Jake couldn't ignore the parallel. The cabin was weathered but intact, just like their relationship. "Let's check it out," he said, pushing open the creaky door. The interior was dark and untouched, filled with memories of a simpler time, far removed from the chaos of the day. Inside, the air was stale, spiritual remnants of laughter and warmth lingering in the dust. He felt a strange comfort, as though this place had been waiting for them. "This will do," he said, surveying the space with newfound resolve. "We can take a breather here." Emily nodded, her shoulders relaxing as she inspected the small room. "At least it's safe from the fire, for now." She paused, glancing sideways at him. "You know we need to talk." Jake inhaled deeply, the weight of her words pressing against the walls they had built around one another. "You're right, and it's about time." As they settled on the old wooden floor, surrounded by the relics of their upbringing, he knew this was the moment they would confront the shadows of their past. "Emily, I've been such a fool. I let my fear dictate my choices. I distanced myself from you and the family." Her eyes softened, reflecting the turmoil he had seen mirrored in his own. "Jake, it wasn't just you. I felt lost too, like I was never enough. I withdrew into my art, hoping to find myself outside of the ranch. It's how I coped." He could feel the years of unresolved emotions coiling around them, but he pushed through that discomfort, digging deeper. "I didn't realize how much I missed you until today. I've been so wrapped in my own misconduct and protecting a legacy that doesn't embrace all of us. I ignored you, and for so long I chose silence over dialogue." Emily's expression shifted, her vulnerability surfacing. "I thought you resented me for leaving. I was afraid you saw me like everyone else in the family, as a lost cause." The truth of that statement hung in the air, a lifeline threaded between them. "We both sought safety in our own ways, but we can't keep hiding. I want us to be more than those ghosts of the past." Fresh tears glimmered in her eyes, but this time they shone with strength, a catharsis breaking through years of pain. "I want that too, Jake. Let's stop letting fear define us." Jake met her gaze, the sincerity sparking a powerful recognition of their journey ahead. "We've faced flames together today, and we survived. We can face our past together now." It was then that he realized their entire experience. It was not just about the fire. It was about rekindling family ties, restoring bonds long left to ash, and moving forward as individuals united in purpose. "Let's promise to be open, always," he said, his voice steady. "How can we build a family if we remain silent?" "Together," she affirmed. They rose together, the weight of what lay ahead no longer a burden, but an invitation to forge new paths. Jake felt true strength blossoming within. They were no longer distracted by doubt, but fueled by trust and hope. As they stepped outside the cabin, bathed in fresh sunlight, the horizon looked different. The flames were still raging, but now they stood as a beacon of what had been overcome. The fire had opened the door to transformation, and Jake understood that while the path would be fraught with challenges, each step forward held the promise of reclamation. They would accomplish more together, guiding each other through shadows and light alike. With Emily by his side, Jake faced the world anew, resolved to reconstruct the future with the bravery that had ignited a love too powerful to extinguish. Before him lay not just the end of a fire, but the birth of a family rising from the ashes. You need to subscribe now to not miss exclusive emotional stories like this one. Leave a like now to help us share these vital tales with the world. Comment your reactions and theories about this journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.